You know, Tim Cook promised a couple of weeks ago that Apple was going to have more game changers and that we would see them. Do you think we saw a game changer today, or are we still waiting for this?
No, this wasn't a game changer. I mean, there was important substance, as we talked about, because the iOS is a critical part of how people get mesmerized with their phones. It's more about the software and the hardware. So I don't want to downplay the importance of today, but the real fireworks is going to start this fall and into next year. And so I think from an investor standpoint, you need to own these ahead of when it becomes apparent to everyone that these products are coming.
So what are we going to see?
Well, I think that the three key incremental products, obviously they're going to update the iPods and iPads and the basic iPhone, but the three key ones are a cheaper iPhone in the fall, a TV in the beginning of next year, probably announced this year, and then ultimately some wearable technology, probably a watch at some point. So if you kind of think about the big picture, that's a lot of stuff going on in a short amount of time.
So let's start with the cheap iPhone. I mean, obviously the iPhone is the biggest part of Apple's bottom line right now. How significant, how much does Apple need this cheap iPhone? And does this trade-in program that they've now started throw a wrench into anything that you've been expecting?
Yeah, the trade-in program is a little bit of a mystery in terms of how this plays out. So we just kind of want to see how they ultimately, what they're going to do with those phones that they take in. But ultimately, the concept of a cheaper iPhone is about 40% of total dollars spent on iPhones are spent on, total dollars spent on phones are spent below $400. So there's a huge market that they're not even touching right now. So for a company the size of Apple, around $200 billion this year, to be able to grow, they need to really target big markets. And that's the importance of this cheaper phone.
And I want to go back to John now at the Moscone Center. John, you've been doing a lot of look into the emerging markets, and there's a huge potential for Apple to grow there, and it's a place where they're really losing in terms of the competition.
I think there's a lot of good, cheaper phones that are on the market in those, you know, in that area, in China in particular, with, you know, companies like Lenovo. And I think that if you think, going back to that long game, you know, here in North America, where maybe everybody already has a high-end smartphone and it's getting that much more difficult to sell them a phone, if you keep them in the world that is Apple and you keep them spending, there's a lot of revenue to be made. Same argument can be used in those developing markets. If you get the phone in their hands, that opens that window to the huge world that is Apple. And once people get hooked, sometimes it's hard for them to leave. And I think Apple's got to be betting that that ecosystem, for lack of a better word, is what really benefits them long term.
Let's get to the next big product category, Gene, that you mentioned earlier, TV. Are we going to see it, and when? Is it going to be this year?
Well, we think we'll see it this year. We think we'll actually be able to purchase it sometime in the first half of 2014. And
what's taking so long?
Well, it's hard to get the panels. One thing is these panels are expensive parts. Getting the yields at the type of production runs that they're going to need, so there's been some issues around that. And separately is it's a software. Software is critical, and they're really trying to, from everything that you can piece together from comments from Tim Cook a few weeks ago at the D11 conference, as you piece these together, they really want to change the whole concept of TV and how we interface with TV. And so what takes long is getting that software right takes always longer than I think, and so that's part of the reason why these delays happen.
And quickly, what about iWatch?
Wearable technology is another huge market for Apple. They've alluded to that. We believe that that's one of the three big product categories that they're going to be going after.